Take two. Is your life kinda complicated? Welcome to One Take, the podcast designed to seek wisdom to live simple, healthy, and happy. We'll get there one take at a time. I'm your host, Yezmin Thomas. Welcome, everyone, and thank you so much for joining me for Take Two of this show. I am so happy that you're here. Today we have a great show on a topic that if there's drama in your life, this is going to help you. So stay tuned. Today we're talking to Dr. Stevie Dawn Blakely of StevieDawnInspires.com. I met Dr. Stevie Dawn a couple of weeks ago. She came to work to talk to the women's group on a topic that I had never heard of: emotional intelligence. How fancy does that sound? Well, I was intrigued and I went to her presentation and it was amazing. It was inspiring. It was very educational. Suddenly, ever since she came over to work and I learned about this term, I suddenly start hearing it and I see it everywhere. So apparently it's not such a new thing as I thought this must be the new thing. It's not. It's been around for a long time. I just had never heard about it. Plus the name is kind of fancy, emotional intelligence. Doesn't that sound fancy? Well, so let me tell you a little bit about Dr. Stevie Dawn because she is a very bright and she's a brilliant lady. She has a master's degree in sociology from Wichita State University. Go Shockers. And she has a doctorate in leadership from Colorado State University. And for those of you who are wondering, how do I even know about the Shockers, which is the basketball team of Wichita State, I actually lived in Wichita for 2 years and a half. That was my first move here from Mexico to Kansas to Wichita. So yeah, it was a big cultural shock coming from a huge city in Mexico. So, but that's, besides the point. As I was saying, she has a doctorate in leadership from Colorado State University. She has over 12 years of training experience and more than 25 years of teaching experience. So we're talking to someone that really knows this topic. And you'll see, our conversation was delightful. But before we jump in, let me tell you a couple of good news about the show. I have now established an email account, and I would love to hear feedback from you. So if you want to send me an email, do it. The address is podcast@YezminThomas.com. And you spell it YezminThomas.com. Go ahead and connect with me on social media as well. You can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and Pinterest at Yezmin Thomas. And you can find me on Facebook as well as Yezmin Thomas. Actually, on Facebook, you'll find me two ways. The way for the podcast and my blog, you can find me on facebook.com/Yezmin Thomas blog. You will find another Yezmin Thomas, which is me, but that's the account that I use, the fan page that I use for work. So if you want to follow me there too, go ahead. You'll see a lot of the work that I do as a TV reporter. But if you want to be aware of what's going on with the podcast and my blog, then go ahead and follow me on Yezmin Thomas blog on Facebook. So let's get started. I hope you enjoy it and please get connected. Give me your feedback. I want to provide content that inspires you and I'm looking forward to get feedback from you guys. Thank you so much, Dr. Stevie Dawn, for being with us. Stevie from Stevie Dawn Inspires. You are a very inspirational person. I met you a few weeks ago and you opened my eyes to a lot of new information. And it's funny to say it because ever since you came to work and gave your presentation, I have been more aware of those concepts and I realized they've been around me. I just didn't pay attention to them. But before we jumped into all of the great information and knowledge and wisdom that you have, let us start by telling us a little bit about yourself. How did you get into what you're doing right now, and how it evolved from, a few years ago to where you're at right now.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for having me tonight. So I think for me, I've always been a trainer or a teacher. I taught my first dance class when I was 8 years old, and I have been teaching ever since. So I think for me, I've just kind of come full circle. I started out teaching and training, and that's what I ended up doing. But really, where I kind of got my drive and passion for this stuff was in my doctorate program. I was working in higher education. I was doing leadership development for college students. And I started a doctorate because, hey, you're in higher education, you have to have a doctorate degree. And I had no idea what I was going to study. So I went into a leadership program, and they said, you have to choose something. And so in my first year, I got introduced to emotional intelligence. And as I started reading more and researching more, I thought, oh my God, this so explains my life. This is why I feel certain things. This is how I look at the world. And so it really just became my passion. And so as I completed my doctorate and started working, I thought, I really want to train others in this life skill, because once you are aware, you do notice that it's already all around you and you're already doing it. But once you kind of get the information, it starts to become really crystal clear. And I think for me, it has helped in all facets of my life. It's helped in work. It's helped in my relationships, my personal life. And I really feel like this is what I am on this earth to do right now, is give this. So that's where I am, and I'm proud to be doing it.
And you started working for other companies, and now you have your own company. Is that right?
Absolutely, yeah. So before I went into the academic world, I worked in a bunch of different corporate jobs, never quite finding one that stuck. I think I stayed everywhere for like 6 months, and then I would quit. I was never fired, though, very clear. I was never fired. I always quit, but really because they were never everything I wanted. And so when I was finishing up my doctorate and I started looking at what's my next thing, my husband actually is the one who recommended, maybe you just need to start your own business. I've run my own dance studio before several times, and so I know a little bit about it and how to run a business, but he was really the one who pushed me into taking my training on the road and making that what pays my bills and what pays my life. And that's just been the greatest decision we ever made. And we opened this company in 2015, beginning of 2015. And now as we sit here at the end of 2016, he is about to leave corporate America, come join me, and we're going to be doing this together. So that was always our goal in the end. So we're really excited.
That's amazing. Now, was that transition scary for you?
Oh, yeah. Lots of panic, lots of sleepless nights. When I left corporate America, I left, and the very next week I thought this was the worst decision I have ever made. I can't believe I did this. And I even went so far as to pick up the phone and start dialing my old boss to say, oh my God, give me my job back. But, once you start looking at the freedom and you start looking at doing what you were made to do, and enjoying every aspect of your job, not just the little pieces, it really becomes, you know what, you got to hang tough, you got to hang in it, and it's worth it. And, my husband put in his notice today at work, and so he's kind of going through that same thing right now of fear and scare and terror of what's going to happen in 2 weeks when we stop getting paychecks. But he's excited, and I've never seen him this excited about something. And I think it's that idea of you create your own life, write your own story. You don't have to do the old traditional thing just because people say you do. There's a whole other world out there. So it's scary, but it's great.
And I love that you touch into creating your own story, because this podcast, that's what this is about, getting wisdom from other people who've taken the steps or who've gone through the path that I and other people listening to this would eventually want to take, and being an entrepreneur it's really something that for many people, that's something they want to do. And I love that you're able to share that with us. And also your husband, he must be happy because now he has somebody at home to coach him. You didn't have that, so
absolutely, yes. He is. We are doing a lot of training. The first couple weeks that he's here, he's like, I don't know how to do any of what you do, but we're going to make it happen. So yeah, it's going to be great.
It's great that you guys are going together through this journey. That's going to be really exciting. And maybe we can check with you guys, a few months down the road to see how it all
absolutely. By then,
out.
Maybe he won't be so camera shy, and we can make sure he gets into all of this.
Sounds good. Now, Stevie, you talk about being a coach. Tell us, what is the role of a coach, and how do you help people, and specifically with your expertise, in which areas do you focus?
So for me, really, I like to talk about two different things. I think there's training and then there's coaching. And so, and I do both, just with different ways. Training for me is when I'm imparting a skill. So it's a lesson. I'm a teacher. You need to learn this lesson, blah, blah, blah. Coaching is really about, okay, so you've been told the what to do. Now I'm going to help you through the how to actually do it. And that to me is the coach piece. So the trainer piece is the what, and then the coach piece is the how. And the coach is somebody in your corner, somebody who's going to support you and going to encourage you, but also going to hold you accountable to what you say you're going to do. And I think that's one thing that I really strive with in my clients is if they tell me, well, I'm going to implement this month, then I call them in 30 days and I say, did you do it? Are you doing it? Did you do what we asked you to do? And really holding somebody accountable. I think a lot of us need that in our lives, just in general, and we don't really have it. If it's not a boss and it's not a parent, right, who holds you accountable to your dream, who holds you accountable to what you really say you want to do. And I think that's where coaching comes in. So for me and my business, we specifically work on leadership training, emotional intelligence and communication, and a lot on how to be a dynamic speaker, that confidence piece, how to put together a presentation and speak to people off the cuff, because that's my style. So that's what I teach, as you can totally tell from this.
I was just going to say.
I don't have any notes. I just go with whatever I'm feeling at the moment. So I do a lot of training in that as well. And then a side part that I do specifically because I love it, so it's kind of side from the business, is coaching entrepreneurs, because I really feel like I've been there. I've done the suffer and the struggle. The struggle is real, hashtag. But it's something that I'm on the other side. I'm to the side where I'm making a profit. I'm to the side where I can bring my husband full time. And I want to encourage other entrepreneurs that, hey, they can do that too. And so I think in that role as coach, of being that voice to say, hey, you can do this too. You just need a plan. You just need the how you're going to do it. But once you have it, anything is possible. And so I really love that piece of my coaching business. It's a little bit separate from the company because it allows me to really work with others who I feel are going through the same things I went through just 6 months ago or just a year ago, and try and help them learn from my mistakes so they can make all new ones. They don't have to make the same ones I did.
Now, going back to you becoming independently employed, how long was that journey from the beginning to the point that you are now bringing your husband on board? About 2 years, or what would you say?
Yeah, so I would say from the time we started our business, it's almost 2 years, right? It'll be January 2017 will be exactly 2 years. Now, I really think the whole first 8 months, we had no clue what we were doing. So I kind of consider that a wash. I'm like, I had no idea what we were doing. We had a whole different business than what we actually do now, because we didn't know what would work. So I was working it as a side hustle. I was giving it half my energy on the weekends, and it kind of showed, right? I really consider January of 2016 is really when we got serious about it. I had quit my corporate job. We had made it through Christmas, where I was freaking out because I had no paycheck, and I'm a Christmasaholic, so that's a big deal. And so we had made it through that, and I got my first big client, right? And I got my first big client in January. And so for me, that January 2016 was really when it started to become real. And so I would say it's been about 8 months months, 8, 9 months, we started the business started being able to pay her bills. It's a her, by the way. My business is a her. It started being able to pay her bills in August of this year. So, so she's been paying her own bills for a few months now. She's very independent, and now we can bring him home. So, not to brag, but to encourage. What I tell people is this: I went from about 0 to 6 figures in about a year. So it is totally possible. Anybody can do it. I totally believe that. I did not have any secret special sauce. I struggled through all of it, but I was able to do that. And next year's looking very, very good for us. So.
And how were you able to grow so fast and in such a short period? Because new businesses, sometimes they take years to become profitable. I can imagine probably you have very low expenses.
Yes.
And maybe that help. What are some, share with us, because, you know, a lot of us would eventually like to be where you are at now. So share some of your wisdom in that area.
Absolutely.
If you don't mind.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, of course. So I think number one, yes, keeping expenses low is huge. We have no office, right? No brick and mortar. We are just working out of our home. I work from my laptop wherever I go. Every coffee shop is my friend with free Wi-Fi. So, you know, keeping expenses low has a ton to do with it. If you're opening a store, my parents have actually owned a used bookstore and tea shop. And when they did that, I mean, that brick and mortar was 75% of their expenses, right? So huge expense if you have to have a space. So that being aside, if you don't have a space, keep expenses low. That helps a lot. And then I really think the only reason I did any differently than anybody else might do is because I had coaches. I built my board of directors. That's what I call them. And it's people who are specialized and wonderful in certain areas, and they help me. And some of them charge me for that service. Others of them do it out of the kindness of their heart. And either way, I value and appreciate them. But they have coached me along the way. And I think one thing that I've heard from them is that I was coachable. I wasn't so stuck in what I thought I had to do that I wouldn't listen to what they said. So I took their knowledge and I took their suggestions and I said, okay, if they think this will work, why not give it a shot? I obviously don't know what's working if I'm not making any money. So I was very coachable. I was a sponge. I soaked it up. But I really think that is what made the difference for me, because I had people there to tell me, hey, do it like this and you're going to see success. And every time I followed their instructions, I made it. So I really think for other entrepreneurs, get coaches, get a lot of them in a variety of areas, and seek their advice and seek their opinion on your business. And your business will change and it'll grow, but it will really grow, I think, faster because, again, you're not making all the same mistakes. You're taking experienced wisdom and saying, hey, let me do it their way. If their way works, don't reinvent the wheel. So I really do think that's what made a difference for us.
I love that you touch on the point that you were coachable. It's such a simple concept. It's so huge because sometimes we go into things thinking we know it all, thinking we're good at this, thinking we got this, you know, and we don't know anything. And if we were only open to getting feedback from others, things would be so much better and different.
Absolutely. And I think entrepreneurs especially, right? Because you don't become an entrepreneur unless you're passionate. So you're passionate about your business. You're passionate about what you do, which is awesome. But just because you're passionate doesn't mean you're going to make money. And one of the first things one of my coaches told me, and he still says it to me on an almost weekly basis, is it's good that you're passionate about it, but treat it like a business. Go into it to make money. Don't go into it to do it for free. You know, and in the beginning, I think that was my biggest problem. I coached everybody for free, right? I provide advice, I provide opinions, and I do all that. And I would do that consistently. And then look back and go, man, that person should have paid me for that. But I wasn't treating it like a business. And so I think sometimes for entrepreneurs, it's hard to separate that passion from the making money element. And for me, I kind of got to a point where I said, you know what, it's great that it's my passion because it means I don't actually work, right? I get up in the morning and I have a good day, and I have a good day every day. That's awesome. But it's that passion that drives that. But it's my focus on business that makes me profitable. It's my focus on business that makes me money. It's not my passion, really, that makes me money. I was pure passion before and made zero. It's when I started having a plan and a strategy and a pricing model and a sales funnel and all those other things you need to have. Once you have all that, it starts to make money.
That's a lot of work.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm going to ask you the question that I asked you, or we were all wondering when you came over to the office. What in the world is emotional intelligence? It sounds so fancy.
I know, doesn't it?
It sounds.
One of my coaches still asks me that because he still says he doesn't get it. He goes, I just think it's about being smarter with your mouth. And I said, that's probably not a bad way to describe it. I really
like that.
It all comes down to that think before you speak rule that we were all taught as children and then promptly forgot once we became adults because nobody was yelling at us. So it's emotional intelligence truly is being effective in your communication by using your emotions, whether that be restraining them or expressing them. It's whatever you need to do at the time, but it's realizing that emotions impact us, and we have to be able to be smart about that. So for me, it's not only the communication part, it's the talking part, but it's also the listening part. I say emotional intelligence is clearing the filters that are over your ears. And sometimes I actually wear headphones, so this is a really good demonstration for this. But, emotional intelligence is removing these, and the rest of the world is still putting them on. And these are all the past experience you have, all the personal narrative that you go through your brain, so that even when that person that you don't like from the office is telling you good job, they're saying good job, but you're hearing something completely different because you don't think they would ever tell you good job. That's your filter getting in the way, right? And emotional intelligence is saying, you know what? Let me actually take that filter off. And let me just hear the words that the person is saying and accept it. And that acceptance piece is the piece that we all struggle with, right? It's like, and I compare it to my husband, and I have these conversations all the time. And I compare it to, when he tells me I'm pretty, and then I go, no, I'm not, I'm fat, I've got the cellulite, I don't have my makeup on today, blah, 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 blah. Instead, could I just say, thank you? But that's emotional intelligence. That's saying, you know what? It's my emotions that are getting in the way of my hearing that compliment. He actually meant it. I should just say thank you.
How is it different from men and women? Because, women, we're told you're pretty. We hear you're fat, you got pimples, your makeup sucks, your hair is horrible. Right. How is it different for men? Because my son, you tell him, buddy, you had a great practice. And he'll look at you with a big smile on his face and will say, yeah. Thank you, Mom.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why can't we do that?
Can't I do that?
Yeah,
right?
Why can't I do that?
So one of the things that we know, right, is that men and women are raised differently. There's different societal norms and cultural values placed on men and women, and it's nobody's fault. It just is the world in which we live right now. So men are really raised with this idea of, you're blunt, you're straight, you're direct, you're to the point. And so they don't tell whole stories about anything. They're not looking for hidden meaning. They're just saying what they feel. And so if he tells you you're pretty, you're pretty. If he says you had a good practice, you had a good practice. Women, on the other hand, we're taught from such a young age to care so much about what other people think of us. Men really don't get that. Right? Women really do. Women get this whole idea of it's important what other people think, mind your manners, it's better to be seen than heard, all these other little mannerisms that come in or cliches. And so we really start creating a story in our brain. And if you think about it, you're playing a story in your head all the time. You're hearing to yourself, oh, did I turn the oven off, or, oh, what am I going to cook for dinner tonight? And then you're thinking constantly about all these different things because it's in our nature to take care. And so we take care of everybody around us. Even if we don't have anybody around us, we're still taking care of the situation. Men don't have that. So when we go into a situation or a conversation, we're playing that all through our filter. And so only some of their words are actually getting in, and the rest of it we're making up in our head, right? Like I love, there's a meme on the internet that goes around sometimes, and it says, when I'm standing in the shower, when I can't sleep at night, we're having that fight in my head that we never had in real life. But in the morning, I'm going to be angry at you for this fight, right? And that's how we do it as women.
I've been there.
Right? I've been there too. My husband will tell me all the time, I didn't ever say that. And I'm like, yes, you did. He goes, are you sure it wasn't in your dream? Okay, maybe it was, right? Because we tend to keep filling in a story. We love a good story, and we'll fill it in. And so I think for men and women, that's really the huge difference, is we're planning on stories, and they're just planning on words, direct and to the point. And what I try and work on in organizations is, okay, if we know this now, right? So you have the wisdom of this, then how do you communicate better? Well, as women, you get better at taking out the story and just being direct and to the point, and just tell them like it is, because they'll be okay with that. They're not going to hate you for being honest.
Are they going to be surprised that we're not
They will be shocked
adding the story?
But they'll learn. As you get better at telling less stories, they get better at understanding that you're telling less stories. But then for men, right, on the other side of that, men probably need to be a little bit more accepting of a story and understand that women tend to meld work and personal life, whereas men tend to keep them very separate.
Oh, yeah.
And so male coworkers need to understand that when we bring up our kids and stuff like that, it's not to be irritating or to, put our woman card out there. It's just we bring it all together. For us, it's all life, where we just don't compartmentalize the same way. So they got to get a little bit better at accepting a story and being okay with it, right? And we got to get a little better at not needing a story for everything. Like I've told 500 stories already tonight. We probably didn't need, right? I could have just been direct.
But then it gets boring. If you don't have a story, it gets boring.
Right? I agree. But I would tell you that most men would be like, yes, but if I want to learn something, just tell me what it is. So we're different. We're just different, and we have to learn how to manage that together.
Now, this thing of emotional intelligence, I am realizing it takes a lot of awareness and work, because this is the way we are. So being aware of emotional intelligence and practicing emotional intelligence means that we need to break bad habits too. Yeah. How do we do that?
So awareness is key, right? And the only way you get more aware is by being more aware. There is no secret sauce. What I can tell you is everybody has keywords, key phrases, triggers that trigger certain behaviors and responses, right? So for me, right, when I communicate, I tell a lot of stories and I make a lot of statements. I don't ask a lot of questions. I expect the other person to ask me questions. That's the way I communicate. My husband does the exact same thing. So what that means is we both just talk at each other. Neither one of us is asking questions. And we tend to get defensive. Well, we've learned this, right? So the awareness piece is realizing, hey, I'm getting defensive. He probably didn't mean it like that, right? But I take his comment as an attack, because otherwise shouldn't he have asked a question? So, and he does the same. So we're both guilty on this, guilty on both accounts. So for me, it's that trigger of, okay, I'm getting defensive. Let me take a step back. And I will actually just say, okay, I'm getting defensive. I think we need to take a step back and I need to clarify what I'm saying. And it's having that trigger in your head, knowing when you feel it. Realizing that emotions, get this, affect you physically before they affect you mentally. You will feel your emotion in your body
Oh, yeah.
before you will say anything.
I feel it in my gut.
Right?
Yes.
So really the awareness is actually being aware of your body. It's saying, okay, I've got that feeling. I need to take a pause. I need to not speak right now, because if I speak right now, it's going to come out mean or angry or whatever it is, whatever I'm feeling. And they don't deserve that. They need me to be calm and rational. And so like for me, it's in my hands and my ears turn bright red. When I get emotional, my ears turn red. And so when I start to feel that heat, that's a signal to me to say, okay, I need to back down off this, right? But every one of us has those triggers. So the biggest thing is figuring out where is yours, where do you feel it first? And then just making a mental note of every time you feel that, okay, I got to stop myself. And then if you're not going to catch it every time, and so when you don't catch it, right, you remind yourself the next day, hey, tomorrow's a new day, I can try again. And this time, hopefully, I'll catch it. But we have to be actively aware of it. It's not something that you can just hear it and then forget about it. It is something I practice every day in every conversation I have. And I dissect every conversation afterwards and go, okay, was I too emotional here? Did I not say the right things here? That kind of thing. I do that, right? So that I can get better at it. But everybody has those little triggers. If we can hit on them and hold back, then we're able to actually have better communication. So it does start with awareness. And the only thing is to be aware of your body. That's the best way you can do it.
So you've kind of given us a really easy 2-step by starting with awareness and then paying attention to what your body is telling you so that you can shut your mouth in that moment before
Yes.
you really mess up.
Yes, absolutely.
Now, this is, I can see already, I can see as you speak, I can see how this can help me improve my relationships with my husband, my kids, my family members. This can also improve our relationships at work.
Yeah. Oh, so often if you think about it, work is where we spend 90% of our time.
Yes.
Right. And for a lot of us, we spend way too much time at work. And in my life, as I became an adult, I realized that most of my friends were from work. Right? Because those are the people I hang out with all day. So those become my friends. Well, then it becomes now you go to happy hours with them. And now you have Christmas parties with them. And then, so now work and family are starting to lead together. And so I do think that this idea of feeling it, right? Having that trigger and then taking that second to stop yourself really saves your work relationships. Because it gets confusing and we take work personally. A lot of us really get pride and confidence from our work. So when somebody says, well, I didn't agree with Stevie today, I'm like, what? Like, how can you not? Right? And then I get defensive and I start getting ready for a fight. Right? And we have to remind ourselves that number one, it is just work. And number two, it really isn't all about us. That they may be going through something just as much as we're going through our own emotional thing, and we need to both give each other space. But by having this conversation at work and being able to say to each other, you know what, I'm gonna take a step back. I'm getting a little defensive. I need to just back down. Everybody becomes less emotional. And you de-escalate the situation. And once you de-escalate it, it's so much easier to have open, honest communication where you can just be honest, say what you're saying, right? And not take all the hidden meanings with it, but just the words. And you'll find that you actually have much more productive meetings and conversations. And it allows you to then, when you're in the outside of work time, you can actually just enjoy each other more because you're not worried about the work aspect, right? We got to get a little bit better at that compartmentalizing, and it becomes easier if you're just open and honest. Because if you're open and honest, there's no reason to hide anything or keep anything separate. It's just how it is. But absolutely, this changes workplace culture if everybody gets on board and everybody starts watching themselves.
And it's even more beneficial for everyone if you not just become aware of your behavior, but also acknowledge it out loud. Because like you said, then everyone takes a step back and then the tone of the conversation shifts. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's about taking ownership of it. It's about that one brave soul, right, who is willing in a group of 10 to go, you know what, guys, I think we're just going round and round in circles. I feel I'm getting a little defensive about my opinion. I think I'm going to take a step back and just listen. And once one person says it, right, and everybody will look at them funny the first time. But once one person says it, then everybody else stops and listens, because that's really what you're trying to do. You're trying to say, hey, maybe we're talking so much, we're not actually hearing each other. So I'm going to take a step back and I'm going to listen. I've said my piece. I'm going to stop back and listen. And you'll find other people in the room do the same thing. And now, right, we're having better conversation.
Now, how can we use emotional intelligence as employees to our advantage when we are talking to like upper management or managers, people in the leadership?
Right. I think the first thing is to realize that the age-old tale that everybody has something going on that you don't know about. So upper management, when I do I do some mediation between groups, and what tends to happen is upper management has a big picture of what's going on. And so they make decisions within that big picture. As an employee, I see this little tiny bit of the big picture, and it doesn't make sense to me. So as an employee, what I need to be willing to do is to accept what I'm being given, right? So if my boss comes to me and says, hey, I need you to get this done by Friday, and I'm thinking, that doesn't make any sense. Why would I even do that? I need to be like, okay, great. Yes, sir. I will get it done by Friday. Can I ask why we're doing it? That's the question. Can I ask why we're doing it? Upper management needs to be willing to say why, or willing to say, absolutely you can, but I don't have time to talk about it now. And as an employee, I have to say, okay. I have to accept that there may be other things going on I don't know about. So while I think I'm right, I may actually not be right for the organization. That's what upper management is supposed to be doing. And so by just asking that question of accepting it and saying, yes, I hear you, great, I'll get it done. And then saying, can I ask why we're doing that? When you start asking that why question, those clarifying questions, you start opening the door for them to give you feedback on why they're doing certain things. It also means they have to be on their toes and know why they're doing certain things, which is how it influences everybody to make a better decision, right? Because if they know they're going to have to, if I tell her she's going to ask me the question why, I got to have an answer, they're going to make a better decision because of that. So really just that questioning strategy is something we can use to influence upper management.
And I love the way you phrase it. You phrase it, can I ask why? Because I'm thinking if we're told you have to do this by Friday and we just ask why,
yeah,
then we're being confrontational.
Absolutely.
We're not really being, using empathy and trying to follow direction. We're doing the opposite.
Right. Yes. So absolutely. Just putting in those extra words and saying, can I ask why? Now they may say, yes, you can, but I can't tell you. And you just got to be okay with that. And I've had a boss tell me that once. And it was because it was a proprietary type of need to know situation. And I did not need to know. And I had to be okay with it. But also most of the time when you say, can I ask why? Well, sure, it's because of this. And then once you get the answer, you're just like, okay, thank you for telling me. But it's that, like you said, not being confrontational, but using empathy to say, hey, can I ask why? May I ask why? Can I get some more information? All of those things are just saying, hey, I'm not saying I'm not going to do it. I'm not being confrontational. I'm not being defensive. I'm just asking clarifying questions. And that's really the key part there.
So we have like a list already. Be aware, watch the way you react. And now we have watch the way you phrase your questions and don't be confrontational. I love that. Now, Stevie, I like to ask my guests, swifting gears a little bit. Tell us about how do you balance life, family, hobbies, your personal interests? How do you do it? Because part of this journey with the podcast is trying to find that balance to be able to get to our best selves and I love to ask people what's working for them, if you wouldn't mind sharing with us.
No, absolutely. Well, I would tell you that I don't believe in work-life balance. I like to call it work-life happiness. And if your work is making you happy and your life is making you happy, then you pretty much got it all figured out. It's never going to be a balance for me. There are going to be weeks I put in 140 hours and I don't sleep. And then there's going to be weeks that I spend the whole time with my family and I do no work whatsoever. To me, there is no balance. It's just about finding the happiness in both. And I think so many times we see work as something we have to do and not something we should enjoy. And that saddens my heart because I think that I've been lucky and blessed that I've always enjoyed work. I've always worked at great places with great people. Even if I didn't like the actual job, I still was happy there. I liked the people I was with and I liked the environment, or maybe I just liked the paycheck, but I was happy to be there. And I think if we change that dynamic to seeking balance, to just seeking happiness in both areas, I think you'll get it right. You'll be with your kids for the things that really matter for your kids because that's making you happy. And then you'll be at work for the things that really matter for work because that's making you happy. And if we're just seeking that happiness, we're always going to make the best decisions. For me personally, though, I will say that we have some set rules, some house rules when it comes to work, especially as an entrepreneur because I work all day, all night, right? It's after 7, we're still here doing this,
working.
Right? So we're working at night, right? So we have a rule in our house that at 9 o'clock, all work is done. All discussion of work is done. Everything's done. Unless there's something major we're struggling to finish for tomorrow, it can wait. And so at 9 o'clock, we sit on the couch, we watch an hour of TV, and we do it every night. And that's just my husband and I. We don't have any kids yet. So just the two of us right now. So that's one rule. And then one day on the weekend has to be a non-work day. So sometimes it's Saturday, sometimes it's Sunday. It just depends on what's going on. But we always make sure to have one day where we're just together and we're not talking about work and we're not doing work and we're just enjoying each other's company. So I do think for everybody, making time on your calendar for family is important. My husband's family all live within 20 miles of each other here. And they see each other every 2 weeks, like clockwork. They all make time, and 14 of them gather for dinner every 2 weeks, like clockwork. And it's amazing to me. And there are weeks where we don't want to go. We're not in the mood. We're not feeling it. We go every time because that's the commitment you make, because it makes us happy. And it's kind of like a lot of things, right? It's kind of like working out. I don't like working out. But if I get up and I go, I actually enjoy it once I'm doing it.
Oh, right? You feel better.
You feel better.
Yeah.
But getting up and going is the hard part. And sometimes for us, that family function could be that. It could just be getting up and going is the hard part. But going is worth it. And, over the last couple of years, we haven't been able to go as often because things have changed. Families have grown. Kids have grown. And so it's changing. But, Christmas, Thanksgiving, we're always going to be there. We're going to do that. And you have to be willing to make those choices. You have to be willing to set aside time for family so that you can have that happiness, because it will disappear on you if you don't. And I've done that. I've lived that life where all I had was work and no family, and I was not happy.
Yeah, so, we'll all have that.
Yes, absolutely. So it's important to put aside time for family. But for us, it's actually a time on a calendar, like 9 o'clock, right?
And I like the way you guys have those set rules, because then there's that expectation and things just flow better knowing that at 9 o'clock we need to cut it off and we need to do what we're supposed to do, which is watch our favorite shows.
Yeah, absolutely.
That sounds good. Now, Stevie, your business name is Stevie Dawn Inspires. So the question for you is, what inspires you?
What does inspire me? That's a great question. I don't think I've ever been asked.
You haven't?
I don't think so. No, that's actually quite interesting. I think I find inspiration in the silly little things. It's a coffee mug, right? That has a quote. I love coffee mugs with quotes. I drink my morning coffee out of a coffee mug with a quote every morning, and I post it on Instagram, and it's my like inspiration for the day. I'm inspired by people who just live a life that I think is amazing. And that's it's not riches, and it has nothing to do with the money, but it's a life where they're spending time with family or they're doing hobbies and activities. My mother has done every hobby, activity, random thing known to man in her life and continues to find new ones all the time. Like a couple of years ago, she just became an author, decided she wanted to write, and now she writes books. Like, how cool is that?
Amazing.
I cannot be that cool, right? Like, she's the most inspiring person to me, and her and my dad both. They both have those kinds of things. I find that inspiring. I find people who just continue to have a thirst for learning new things to be inspiring, because I want to be like that. Sometimes I don't feel like I am, but I want to be like that. I find inspiration in animals. So this is one of my things. I don't know if it'll come across on the video. This is a shark. He's kind of big.
Oh, yeah.
So, but he's
huge.
He's huge. Yes, he's absolutely huge.
Okay, for those of you listening to the podcast, this is like a 9-foot stuffed shark, animal shark.
Yes. So I find sharks inspiring as animals. I have sharks all over my house, which whether my husband and we live with other family members, whether they all think it's great or not, I don't know, but it's my house. So I have sharks everywhere. I have sharks on my phone. I have Be the Shark on my bracelet. I'm inspired by sharks, and the reason I'm inspired by sharks, really, it's a whole long story, but I won't tell the story. I'll just tell the facts, which is they have to keep swimming. If they stop swimming, they die. And to me, that's inspiring me to move forward every day, right?
I can't
give up. I can't give up. I can't quit. If I quit, I die. And so I really live by that Dory motto of just keep swimming, right? I really live by that all the time. And so I find inspiration in the little things and in people I know, and then in animals, in my sharks. I get inspiration from them every day.
Now, do you like Shark Tank?
I do. And I've met Damon John. He's very cool.
Yeah.
So yes, I love Shark Tank. Absolutely. And Shark Week is my favorite week of the year. Yeah.
Now, being an entrepreneur, being a coach, what are some of those words of inspiration that you can share with our listeners that may be having a hard time at work, maybe a hard time at the office, maybe launching their business? What can you tell them?
So when I was in my doctoral program, we had, there were a group of us, there were 9 of us. And all from all different parts of the country, we got together once a year. And then during the year, you kind of did your work, right, independent. And when we got together the last time, right before graduation, it was the year before graduation, we talked about how we needed a motto. We needed a team motto. We needed something to make us get this done, right? Because so many people get into a doctorate program and then never write the doctorate dissertation because it's so huge. And so we came up with FYOP. Don't know how this came up, but anyway, it's forge your own path. And the idea behind it is we're all going to get there at a different time. We're all going to get there a different way, but you just have to forge your own path. You cannot compare yourself to anybody else. You cannot compete with anybody but yourself. And we all had rings made. And so we have these rings and they say, forge your own path. And that's something that I continue to live by, that forge your own path motto. And I would just say to anybody listening that's struggling, no matter where you're struggling at, realize that you don't have to do it the same way everybody else did it. You just have to make forward progress. So take a step in any direction and forge your path that way. And you will end up wherever you're meant to end up. But it's not about the destination, it's the journey, right? So forge your own path and enjoy every moment that you have.
That's very inspirational. Thank you so much for sharing that. I really enjoyed it. To end the conversation, to wrap it up, are there any books that you are currently reading or recently have read that you enjoyed and you would like to share with us?
So if you're an entrepreneur and you're ready to knock yourself from passion to business, I would read, there's a set of 3, okay? So it's Traction, Traction, Get a Grip, like Get a Grip, and Rocket Fuel. I'm currently reading Rocket Fuel. It's awesome. I've read the other 2. My husband just finished reading the other 2. And they're really about how to look at your business from a very non-emotional way and structure it to get things done. And it gives you a really step-by-step process of becoming profitable. So I really love those books. If you're an entrepreneur, I think those are required reading in my book. On the personal side, I'm terrible. I like old teenage romance novels that make me feel absolutely nothing except happiness and joy, because the boy always gets the girl and everybody lives happily ever after. I love those. But one of the books that I read recently, I really enjoyed. It's by Wayne Dyer. I'm terrible with authors' names. Even though my mom's an author, I should know better, but I'm terrible with authors' names. But it's How to Be a No-Limit Person. And it's really all about kind of not settling and telling yourself you can do it every day. And he's got really interesting stories. I listened to it on Audible. I loved it. So that's one that I recommend to people, especially if they're looking to get out of their own way. It's a great one to kind of reset your mind a little bit on how to be a no-limit person. So those would be my recommendations.
Awesome. Stevie, thank you. Thank you so much. I'm honored to have you. I'm excited to share this with all our listeners. Now, if they want to get in touch with you, what are some of the ways? I know you're big on Instagram. What are some of the social media, your website? Tell us how and where can we get in touch with you?
Absolutely. So I am on social media everywhere I can be. So you can find me personally, Stevie Dawn Blakely, Blakely. You can find me on Facebook. You can find me on LinkedIn. Twitter and Instagram are SD Inspires. So Stevie Dawn Inspires, SD Inspires. And then you can also contact me through my website, which is www.steviedawninspires.com. And I'm about to launch my own personal website outside of the business, and that'll be drsteviedawn.com. So look for that hopefully in the next couple of days. What are you? Time you're seeing and hearing this, it'll be done.
It'll be done. And what's that going to focus on? The one, your personal?
So that one is more about me outside of the business. So looking more at the coaching of entrepreneurs, talking about speaking. I love to go and speak to organizations. So it's going to have my speaking sheet and all that kind of stuff that I do. And then just a little bit about some of my mottos and kind of what drives me. So a little more of a personal side outside of my company side.
I like it. I'm looking forward to reading that.
Yeah, it'll be great. I'm excited.
And for you and the listeners to know, all these, the books that we've mentioned, any resources that you mentioned, all your social media, Instagram accounts and everything, I'll put them on the blog with the show notes so that anyone who's listening to these and they're driving or running, walking the dogs, whatever they're doing when they listen to podcasts, they can go in and look at the show notes either on the blog or on the podcast, and they can get access to all this.
Awesome. That's great.
Thank you so much, Stevie. It's been a pleasure, and I'm really grateful to have you on. Thank you.
Oh, well, thank you so much. It's been my honor. Thank you.
So what do you think about it? Wasn't that awesome? Emotional intelligence, learn about it, understand about it, less drama in your life, more success. I really enjoyed this conversation, and I'm really thankful that Dr. Stevie Dawn was able to join us on this second take of One Take, the podcast. Now, all of the books that she mentioned, and this is going to be the rule for every single episode. Besides the podcast, you can go online to my blog, yezminthomas.com, and you are going to find a blog entry that's going to be for every podcast. And you're going to find like a summary of what we talked about, a couple of quotes. If you want to tweet them, it's really easy to set up. You can just go in and click on the quote and you can tweet it. And you can also find all the resources that my guest mentioned during the interview. You can find it there. I'm gonna have a list with all the resources, the books, with the names and the titles and the authors and everything. So any resources that we mentioned during the shows, you're gonna find them on the blog post for every single episode. All right, so that's it for today. Thank you so much for sticking with me. It was almost an hour or about an hour. And this is going to be kind of the length of this episode. I'm just going to go with the flow. Whatever the episode lasts, it's going to last. We're not going to be following rules about how many minutes and seconds the podcast has to last to be successful. We're just going to go with it. We'll go with the flow and we'll just make it happen. That's how this show is going to be about. Okay, guys, well, this is it. Thank you so much. I'm really honored that you got till the end. Stick around. This show is going to be on the air. My goal is to have it on a weekly basis. So stay tuned. And also, if you would do me a favor, if you enjoyed this episode, I would really appreciate if you can go on iTunes and, whatever you're listening, Stitcher or any app or on the web, just go in and give me a review. If you like the episode, just give me a sincere review. And that would help me get noticed on iTunes, and that would help me gain more, a bigger audience. And I would really appreciate that. If you're finding this useful and you want to share with others and you want to spend some time, a couple minutes or seconds of your life, giving me a review on iTunes, I would so very much appreciate that. So having said all that, take it easy, keep it simple. I'll talk to you on the next take.